Hello, everyone. Thank you for coming today. Today we have Professor Solomonik to talk to us about scientific computing. So take it away.
Okay, thanks, Ariane. So today I wanted to tell you a little bit about computational science and kind of why one would want to go in such a field and what types of problems arise there. Computational science, within kind of UIEC, we have scientific computing groups, so often this term also pops up, but both of these are the same thing. It's essentially the study of numerical algorithms for problems that arise in the sciences. So here by sciences, I mean physics, chemistry, biology, engineering. So things that concern kind of modeling the physical world and trying to extract information from those models or to predict new types of behavior. So one example of the types of studies one could do using computational science is modeling boron, which I hear kind of dropped in a picture. And I kind of want to highlight this because kind of boron is kind of a tiny molecular system, kind of really a particle, which is something that experimental scientists can't really study, but something that computational science can model and can solve. So it's a type of kind of analysis and numerical result that we can obtain using computers that we weren't able to before. So the way that computer scientists can contribute to science and to enabling kind of solution to these types of problems is by working on numerical analysis and kind of the areas that surround it. Numerical analysis concerns the study of, in a sense, linear algebra problems and how we can solve them on computers. But also more generally, kind of the study of methods for computational mathematics, which can be quite different in different domains. And you might be studying a system of atoms, you might be studying a system of electrons, or you might be studying the galaxy. And of course, for each of those, you want different granularity. Maybe you want to evolve something in time. Maybe you want to learn about its properties. But actually, all of those cases have a commonality in that what we are really doing is solving a set of equations that describe physical laws. And what we usually do in order to achieve that is to express things in terms of equations, often using linear algebra, because linear algebra actually enables us to compute solutions to many problems. So in a sense, the pathway for science to achieve kind of computational science results and be able to run on large computers and solve new problems is often to phrase their problem in terms of equations, then to find ways to use linear algebra to solve those equations, and then give it to kind of hand it off to us, the computer scientists, to actually perform algorithms that solve those linear algebra problems in the most effective ways. And this is in fact not even maybe unique to scientific computing. Machine learning is also to a degree similar. Linear algebra also underpins a lot of the computation that happens in that domain. And this domain of kind of applied mathematics and numerical computation is kind of to some degree very old and very well studied and very classical. So folks like Gauss and Newton kind of centuries ago were in effect applied mathematicians solving linear algebra problems and actually laid the foundation for many numerical methods that we have today. So the study of kind of how to solve numerical problems using kind of counting and computation, computation not necessarily meaning using computers, but maybe using hand computation as well, has kind of been around for many decades. And so the nice thing about linear algebra and the fact that it's been around for so long is that it provides a common language in an area where it's often very difficult to communicate. If you kind of talk to a physicist or a biologist about their problems and how they want to solve them, they might be able to give you the motivation or the main method, but the actual details of how things work are very complex almost always. However, linear algebra provides kind of a common language that computer scientists understand, as well as what ultimately the scientific method is often doing. So when I talk with collaborators who are scientists, who are kind of either chemists or engineers, we communicate in terms of linear algebra. So we kind of describe the problems we want to solve. They describe the problems they want to solve in terms of the equations that arise and maybe some kind of higher level background from where they're coming from. And we try to suggest, well, what's the right method for actually solving those equations? What is the best way to execute it on a given computing system? And how can they achieve kind of larger scale and better efficiency and kind of be able to do new stuff? Okay, so kind of to reiterate, I guess, I think one reason to study computational science, to study numerical analysis and numerical methods, is because these are fundamental computer science problems that have a direct benefit to humanity. I think to a large degree, more so in many other fields. These are by enabling new science and kind of enabling scientists to solve new problems, we really, I think, can help a lot of people as well as improve the world around us. And despite the fact that the field is old, I mean, there's so many challenges and problems here that research is ongoing, and there is and kind of ever expanding. It's not necessarily bubbling at some of the speed that you see other fields of computer science kind of to some degree come, sometimes also go, but it's kind of been around since the inception. There are also kind of unique opportunities that one can pursue with the study of numerical analysis and numerical methods. One is opportunity to collaborate and engage scientists, which is enabled in both in kind of academic collaboration. So here at University of Illinois, one of the reasons we have a world-class scientific computing program in the computer science department is because we have a world-class College of Engineering, and a lot of computational science has been done there for decades. And our computer science department has been kind of supporting that for all this time, both at an educational level and as well as at a research level, with many kind of collaborations going across decades. But also one of the things that there is in computational science, at least in the US and also in other countries, is opportunity to work with scientists at national laboratories. So for example, Argonne National Lab, a little bit kind of closer to Chicago from here, is one large open laboratory that kind of pursues science, both in terms of new research in computing, as well as kind of new ideas in mathematics, as well as new ideas in biology and physics and applications of interest to society that are kind of funded through the national government, as well as through other agencies. And so kind of a nice thing about that is these are labs and agencies designed kind of that are established to do things in the good of people. And so it's great to be able to contribute to such efforts and play a role. So hope this was not too dry of an intro to scientific computing, as our courses tend to be, but this is kind of my pitch for our field.
Great. One question I guess we'd have was, what are some other applications that you see scientific computing having, whether it be in your own personal experience or something that you've heard of through working in the field?
Yeah, so perhaps I can give an example of the kind of the diversity of applications that come up by talking about some of the research we do. So we study in our group quite a lot tensor computations, which are matrix computations is what I kind of focused on, and matrices are kind of these 2D kind of collections of objects of numbers, while tensors are just multidimensional, say 3D collections of numbers. And we study ways in which one can take a tensor and then break it up into parts that are smaller in order to kind of model the same data set, or to do computations that involve tensors and kind of interact them together. And so one of the application areas that stemmed this was electronic structure calculations for computational chemistry. So how to model kind of interactions of chemical systems and to perform their dynamics, and how to do it in kind of an ab initio way. And however, one application area that we just started working with that uses the same tools and kind of is in many ways overlapping in terms of expertise and methods that we're interested in is modeling data of frequency of kind of counts of COVID-19 as well as other infectious diseases in certain geographic locations and time. So one can also assemble such data as a tensor, and by modeling it, try to ascertain kind of certain clustering properties, as well as potentially try to build models to predict how the infectious disease could spread based on looking at the data. So kind of that collaboration is with somebody who is, I guess specifically another faculty here at UIUC, with Jimeng Sun, who is interested in applications of numerical methods to healthcare modeling. So kind of, you sometimes get completely different problems. I've also run into this one with some of the software we develop. We kind of in a sense, have developed software for tensor computations, and folks kind of come and post on GitHub issues for us to debug, and we get to learn a little bit about what they're doing. And they're coming from different domains of physics and material science, trying to implement new types of methods that they couldn't before because there wasn't really this type of software available. And the basic primitives would have been very difficult and challenging to implement for a scientist whose main job is not necessarily to study how the lower level computer science aspects of the computation work.
So going off of that, I guess, what do you see like for the future of scientific computing with regards to application, or how you think the field will be going in the future with new advances in technology?
Yeah, I mean, I think scientific computing is a slowly growing and developing field to some degree, and kind of broad. So we are kind of steadier, I think, than other areas. There are kind of still fundamental problems that aren't solved that people are working on. At the same time, one new driver that is always a driver in my research, as well as for many other computer scientists, is the emergence of new hardware. And so as, for example, GPUs emerged about 15 years ago, I guess now, as a computing device that is more general than just kind of for graphics computation. And they resulted in a lot of research on computer science aspect of scientific computing, namely how can we take particular methods that we knew how to do and actually parallelize them and execute them well in this completely new different types of architecture. And that actually changes fundamentally some of the questions you have to ask. Maybe you have to worry about the amount of data movement involved in your algorithm as opposed to just the amount of computational work that it does. Or you have to worry about vector-like parallelism where all processors are doing the exact same thing. So kind of this change in hardware is always posing new problems for adapting methods. And in scientific computing, kind of, there's always this target of trying to use the largest scale of computational resources possible, because we are trying to solve new science problems that we couldn't before. And so, if we could have done it on a small machine, we're probably not that interested. So actually, much of the research that happens at places like Argonne National Lab in computational science happens on supercomputers, which are kind of collections of tightly coupled nodes, each of which contains something like you might see on a laptop, maybe with a strong GPU, coupled over an interconnect that's very high bandwidth, so that they can communicate and achieve parallel efficiency. So this study of parallel computation and high performance computing, you see in our department, is also intertwined with scientific computing as it is everywhere else.
Okay, I think we had another question. Angie?
Yeah, so one last question is, how would you recommend a student kind of get more familiar with scientific computing or get started in it? What are like some skills that you would recommend that they know about, or any possible domain knowledge, other domain knowledge aside from CS?
Yeah, I think there's many ways to kind of engage in scientific computing. I think it's also, I would particularly speak to those who are interested in science. And I think kind of as a student in high school, for example, I got engaged in computer science rather early, and I was fortunate enough to have the opportunity to do that. But at the same time, I was kind of, when I was younger and before I knew much about computer science, interested in just science in general. And, all through high school, I was also kind of thinking about both, and I didn't really know what I was going to do with my life. I kind of wanted to do science, but I thought maybe computer science is more practical. And then I got to kind of college, and I figured out that, oh, well, I can actually use computer science to do science. Well, that's cool. I can kind of do what I'm good at and do something that's emerging and going to be important and enable kind of new things in an area I care about. And my area to care about in science turned out to be physics. So I took kind of physics courses and tried to learn about that with the goal of trying to apply kind of computer science methods, as well as to just learn about physics because I was interested. And so that, for me, kind of working on both while then kind of engaging in coursework in numerical analysis and numerical methods, and kind of liking the generality and kind of feel of these problems was the driver. And I would kind of recommend, I guess, similar things to students. Kind of, if you like some aspect of science, or perhaps you're a scientist that's coming and that perhaps was before interested in a particular area of science, but is coming to computer science, kind of consider finding ways of combining your interests. It's both fun and provides unique opportunities, I think, in the future, both within academia and within industry. And I think this is possible with almost any science, as well as kind of things that are not necessarily science anymore, but where numerical mathematics can be used to understand data better, as well as to kind of solve new problems. So I think kind of looking at two fields at once a little bit is quite helpful and also fun.
Great. Thank you so much, Professor Solomonik, for talking to us about scientific computing. And yeah, it was a very interesting presentation. I think many people will be able to gain a lot from that. So thank you.
Thank you.